So I was just saying, being child free is the greatest thing on the planet. And so tell me what your thoughts are on that, because I think you guys feel the same, don't you?
Well, you know, we're just off doing fun things all the time. We talk about it often that like life would be very different if we had a child. Like everyone we know who has a child running around, they are not at the concert with us.
No, that's
Is
right.
that's mean, isn't it?
No, it's just the
It's
truth.
mean.
Okay, so you guys were out at the Hollywood Bowl last night.
I was.
One of the greatest concert venues on the planet. Every single show there is historical because it's the Hollywood Bowl.
Yes.
And I saw some videos from it and it looked amazing. So what was that? It was Jesus Christ Superstar?
They do so many cool events at the bowl. We went to Jaws recently where they play the full score. This was Jesus Christ Superstar in concert. So I actually don't know that much about it, but it was a rock album first before it was
Okay,
even a stage show.
can I just tell you, when I was a very young boy living in London with my family, my mom and dad brought me to the West End performance of Jesus Christ Superstar multiple times because
Yep.
I went to it once, and as a child I became obsessed. That musical
cool.
performance is literally why I became an artist and became a musical performer.
See, and I did not have that connection to that show. I knew Phantom, I knew Joseph, I knew Evita, I knew a lot of his other work, but I didn't know Jesus Christ Superstar well. So last night was my first time seeing it, and to see it with Adam Lambert, with Raul Esparza, with Cynthia Erivo playing Jesus, it was one of the craziest vocal performances I mean, all of the vocals on that stage were unlike anything I've ever seen live.
Like we're all of them as good as Adam Lambert, because we know that Adam Lambert is truly one of the most gifted vocalists on the planet.
I'm not kidding you, James. Cynthia Erivo playing Jesus, she literally had the entire bowl standing up, clapping for 5 minutes. She had tears streaming down her face and she was just looking straight ahead. And I mean, she literally brought the house down. She burned
Wow,
down the Hollywood Bowl.
I need to check her out. What's her name?
Cynthia Erivo's the lead in Wicked. She's playing Elphaba in all the Wicked movies. She started off, didn't start off, but one of her big shows she did on Broadway years ago was The Color Purple. She won the Tony for that. And she is unlike any artist I've seen just interpreting musical theater with such a unique style. But she was singing like to the rafters, hitting notes that I was like,
Okay, I got to check her out.
Crazy.
So I got to ask you, because from the video that I saw that you posted, it didn't look like they had a very elaborate stage set. Was it
No.
very basic?
It was, the
And
band
were they
was
just
on
performing
stage.
songs from it, or was it the actual play?
It was the full production of the show, costumes and stuff. But the sets are it was kind of like rafters that came, but the band was also on stage. There was an orchestra kind of behind this extra screen. So they had kind of the rock band on stage, the rest of the orchestra behind.
Yeah.
And there were different platforms. So you know how the bowl is, like even Adam Lambert was often coming out and walking on this one center line of the bowl that's like out in the audience a little bit.
Yeah.
So they used it. I mean, cast members were coming through the audience at certain points. So they really utilize the space as best they can. But yeah, it's a interpreted version of the show for the bowl stage.
Right,
100%.
because when I saw it on West End when I was a child, there was, very elaborate sets,
Yeah.
and it was a stage play. This sounds to me like maybe it was more of a celebration of the music from that stage play.
But they were all in costumes. Everybody's
Were
in
they all
costume.
doing lines? Were they were they reciting lines and stuff too?
The show doesn't really. It's more a rock opera, so there isn't really a bunch of dialogue. in the show.
I don't. My memory is not that clear on that.
Yeah, it's not really like a dialogue-driven show. It's music, so it's mostly just music, music, music the whole way through. But they were in costume and they were doing all that. But it was just, I mean, a master class in just interpreting musical theater and just like the acting is so key. You know, you can have a great voice, but it wasn't just about that. It was that they are some of the best singers in the industry, but also some of the best actors. And so it was just, that was the most amazing part. It was incredible.
That's really cool. And yeah, you're right.
Adam was
If you had kids, you would not have gone and seen that.
We would
you
not have been at
sitting
Jaws.
At home
We would not have been at Jaws at the Hollywood Bowl 2 weeks ago.
Oh man, we're going to make so many enemies, saying that stuff. But for those of us that made the decision to not have kids, we should celebrate that. We're having a blast, aren't we?
Well, and I think a lot of us are made to feel bad for that choice, like to not be deciding to.
Let's not get into that, because then the comments are just going to be so full of people saying, you guys are idiots. You guys are, you guys don't care. Hey, anyway, the reason I called today is you and I have known each other a long time. In fact, you are my oldest friend. I've known you longer than any other friend that I have. And that kind of plays into what my question is. Mm-hmm. And my question is, and it's going to sound like I'm trying to be funny, and I'm not, but is there something wrong with me? Because I want to break this down into two parts. And the first one is the friendship part of things. Mm-hmm. I really have so few friends. Like, I really find, especially now that I'm in my mid-50s, late 50s actually, Jesus, that I struggle to make friends. But I think that you might have a unique insight into why this might be. And I think there are some things that I am inherently bad at. Mm-hmm. I think there are some major flaws in my DNA that kind of cause this a little bit. Or maybe it's just laziness, or maybe I don't know what it is, but I'm living here in Derry now, and I will say this: I do have some really, a couple of really lovely friends that I feel like my relationship with them is developing, it's expanding, it's deepening, it's getting more and more rich as time goes on. But you know me, I'm a little impatient, and so when things take too long to develop, I start questioning whether I'm doing something wrong. And since you and I have been friends for so many years, and we've had our ups and downs, we've definitely had, like you've even talked to me about this before, when I was living in Nashville, I kind of fell off the radar.
Yeah, you weren't easy to reach during that time.
I wasn't easy to reach. But I just wanted to get your take on this, because as I get older, and as I move further and further away from my career in that very kind of rich, robust, social experiment that was, my life becomes much, 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 much smaller. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, I like that. I really do love my life, but lately I've been really yearning for more meaningful friendships.
Yeah.
And I just thought that you, out of anyone on the planet, would know if there was a glitch in my being that might help me understand why it is why do I have such a hard time making friends? That's my question. I don't
think it's that you have a hard time making friends. I think it's that you struggle with I've always known you to struggle with being a social butterfly. And I think that there's probably a reason for that. I mean, I don't think it's a choice you've made, like, I'm just not going to have a lot of friends. You've had a ton of people around you for years that just want nothing more than to talk to you, spend time with you, blah, 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 blah. But there's also probably been a sense of people wanting things from you, and I think a lot of people in the public eye that's how they feel. There's a feeling of like people just want things from me. They're not actually interested in just my friendship. And I think that
But
that's why we've
I
been.
don't think that's their fault.
No, no.
I think that I've almost trained them to want that from me because I go out of my way to kind of try to be, you know, all things to all people. I always
Right.
try to be that knight in
But
shining
people
armor.
cross the line sometimes. That's my point, is that there's a feeling, I think, when you're, like in a public view of people because you're an artist and stuff, people will show interest and you might be friends with them, but then you've had probably a couple times, not everybody, of course not, but certain people that maybe it's felt like, whoa, 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 like I was trying to be nice, but now, it's almost like a line gets crossed and there's a lack of trust after that sort of stuff. And with you
Yeah.
and I think there's always been a real focus of like, I've said to you over the years, like, I've never asked you for things, and expected things from you. And I think sometimes it feels that way with certain people. But with that said, I sort of want to bring in Robert for a second because he and I were just talking about this, that I have this very big, wide circle of friends, but I've just always been the type of person who's had that instinct to maintain a lot of those
Yeah,
friendships,
you're really good at that. You're a
Yeah.
natural. I don't know if it's natural, but it seems natural. Robert, don't you think that she is just inherently able to juggle? Is juggle the right word,
Yeah,
or
I do. I
just
juggle.
maintain a lot of friendships? And I don't have that. I don't have that skill set.
I've seen Melissa in a room full of people that perhaps she's not friends with, or people she's met for the first time, and she's very comfortable in that situation. Making friends, I think, comes really easily for Melissa. So yeah, I've seen her work a room full of people at an open mic night, for example, and she just welcomes them in, and it's just one big family. She's great at that.
Okay,
But-
but then
but
let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Because I'm very good in social settings
You
as
are.
well. I'm pretty skilled in that. But I'm wondering if the difference is, and Robert, you can answer this. So you see her in a social setting, and she's just lovely, and she's making friends. She's meeting people. But then, do those people ultimately become friends to her?
Maintaining it, yeah.
Does her social circle keep on expanding and keep on growing? Because mine does
Yes.
not. I do the same thing. I go out and I socialize with people and have wonderful conversations with people, and my social circle stays tiny.
I'm going to say something because this is important. Robert and I were talking about his friends back in UK, and he mentioned a friend like, oh, I really should reach out to that person. And I encourage him to do that. I watched my mom do that with my dad for years. My dad was the type of guy that just, once he was off living his life, he wasn't good about calling his mom, calling his sister. He just wasn't the type of person to be the one to reach out. And I will say to Robert, but it's a two-way street. Don't wait for your friends to, then it feels like
Yeah.
you're just the one waiting for them to reach out to you. That's what I do. I make a point of giving people in my life that are important to me my time, because ultimately, if I haven't talked to somebody in 6 months and they send me a message, I make a point of responding because they're making a point.
Do you have to make notes, like call so and so, follow up with so and so? Because none of that is natural to me.
Yeah. I think that's
And
where
I
you would
get
have to put.
uncomfortable with it. I get nervous about it. I get like if I meet somebody, and I really enjoy the conversation, and we actually go so far as to exchange contact information, then I get nervous about reaching back out to them, almost like it's like I'm dating them or something. I
think
get
that's
kind
social anxiety. I think people have social anxiety. I don't think I do, but I think a lot of people, especially in a world now where so much of what we do is like on Instagram or Facebook, and we're not as face to face with people. I do think that for some people, that world has opened up a lot of communication. You know, like my sister lives in a small town. She communicates a lot with her friends via social media that are in other states. And, you know, but I think what you're describing, and this is my answer for you, is that you're a great friend. You just you have some anxiety, I think, about how to maintain those interactions. And I would never call it laziness. I think it more has to do with a feeling of anxiety. Like maybe you'll think to yourself, oh, I haven't responded to them. Oh God, I can't respond now.
Yeah,
and
now
honestly,
it's too late. Now I've already blown it.
You kind of got to not listen to those reactions in your head so much and just, you know, it's like almost like that thing of, don't paint a picture of what you think someone else is thinking. Just reach out and say hi. Like, you know, I think we create stories in our head. And I had this situation this week where I was telling Robert, I'm feeling super anxious about sending this message. It had to do with a client. And I realized after I finally sent the message, because I was trying to be helpful, I finally sent the message and I thought to myself, I was creating this whole story in my head about me not doing a good job somehow, you know? And ultimately I sent the message to my client. She was so appreciative of the message, you know?
Isn't that always the way it is? You obsess over something, especially like sending a message or sending an email to a potential client or whatever it may be.
Right.
And you get so worked up about it. And
that's all this is, buddy. That's all you deal with. You have nothing wrong with you. You know, because sometimes we'll have friends, mutual friends, that'll reach out to me and say, hey, I haven't heard back from James. Is he okay? You know, and people love you and they want to know. I think that's it. It's people are reaching out not because they need anything, but because they just like you and they just want to know that you're good and they want to hear how you're doing. And I think it can feel daunting when you're sort of in a different place in your life. And I think that's okay too. Like you're also just in a different place in your life.
I am in a different place. That's a good point. I'm in a different place in my life. And I think that there's a part of me that doesn't want to have to keep on re-explaining that, you know.
Sure.
Which brings me to the second part of the question, is there something wrong with me? Which goes kind of to this expectation that I think a lot of people had, if not still have, of me, that I should be working in the music industry still. And you know, you brought up Adam Lambert last night at the Hollywood Bowl.
We just love him, don't we?
And we do. I mean, he's just the greatest.
He's so good.
But then you mentioned you're going to Shinedown tonight. Our friends and I would consider Brent and that band a colleague of mine, even though I'm retired now.
Right.
And that really gets to the heart of what my next question is. Is there something wrong with me that I'm basically the same age as those guys and the guys in Papa Roach and, you know, maybe, you know, give or take a few years, and all these guys that are out there kicking ass and still making records and at the top of their game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm retired, and the biggest part of my day is walking my two dogs, which I love, which I am so content with, and I'm so deeply, deeply happy with. But as a human being, I can't help but to compare myself to these colleagues of mine that are still out there kicking ass. And it raises a question to me, is there a lack of motivation? Why is it that I am so content in this tiny little beautiful life that I have here in this town that I love in Northern Ireland?
Yeah.
And yet most of my colleagues are still out there pushing and killing it and just doing amazing things. And sometimes I feel so inadequate, and I don't quite understand that.
I have an answer to this too.
I'm eager to hear that, because I think there's nobody better to ask that question than you.
Because you are living your life. That's all. You're living your life. You made decisions based on unhappiness. You made moves and choices and decisions. And there are some people that don't listen to those instincts and they keep pushing and they end up dead at 57 because they're miserable, because they just kept going after. The guys in Shinedown, I'm so excited to see them tonight. When they do what they do, when I look at what they do compared to like your career, Papa Roach's, you weren't just in one band, like I look at the guys in Shinedown, they're so committed to that project. They've been touring together now, that foursome. Maybe the lineup's changed over their career, but they as a foursome are still in a band actively working. Papa Roach is the same. But they weren't also like, you were like doing full records for other bands, writing songs for other people. Your whole life wasn't just 6 a.m., right? So I look at those bands and they're still actively really connected as a band and doing that thing. And particularly for those guys, they have a really joyful seeming team and it's positive. And there were things.
They have the most
lovely
amazing
family.
Team, just a lovely team of people.
They're the most joyful group of people that we got to tour with and be around, and we all saw what the vibe in the Shinedown camp was like. And as much as we had some amazing times, like it was a hard thing, touring and being out on the road all the time. And at the end of the day, if you really ask yourself the question, does this fulfill me? Like, do I want to be doing this for the next 10 years? I think you knew that the answer was like, no.
Well, I obviously answered that question,
right.
no.
Right. I don't think that's the same for them. I don't think that's the same for like the guys in Shinedown. I think their experience is probably a very different experience, but their careers are just different than your career was.
But it seems, and I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you, and that makes me feel better to hear that. But it also seems so odd to me that, like I said, we're all kind of basically the same age.
Right.
And these guys are still waking up every day and writing killer songs and just inspired, and they're working off of each other and they're just getting excited for the next thing. And I get up and I take my dogs out to go poop and feed them and have some coffee and sit around and just daydream for hours. It's a very different life.
That, though. You and Dee have earned that choice. You've earned you've been like, here's the other thing. Some people aren't smart with their money. They're not prepared to do what you and Dee have done, and not to like give all your life story away or anything, but you guys prepared so that you could have a nice retirement together.
Yeah, you're right, and I am extremely grateful because one of the things that I think many people don't ever get the luxury of doing is retiring early.
Yes.
And so I would say in that respect, and I'm glad we had this conversation, because I do feel like I have gained a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge about the benefits of retiring early. Like, right. I truly do love my life.
Right.
And I assume that Brent and the guys in Shinedown and Jacoby and the guys in Papa Roach, they love their lives too. Oh, I know they do. They're so good at this. They're so good at being them.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that that was the path that I had to be on.
And this is the other thing. We were watching, I don't know if you've seen it. You've met him, though. I know you've met him. Rainn Wilson did this cool documentary series.
Yeah.
And he, at one point, and he's talking about Los Angeles. The episode was about Los Angeles. And Robert recognized this actress. I didn't know who she was, but it was an actor that was in some movies back in the day that chose to leave acting. And now she does like doula for women having babies. Like she works as like a doula, a nurse for women that are doing like home birth. I could be butchering that. But point is, chose to leave that industry, chose to walk away from acting, decided this is not making me happy. I'm going to go do something else. You hear these stories all the time. It is not wrong to walk away from something and go, I loved doing this, but I'm going to also go off and, you know, like even me touring with ABBA, like it's not the same as being a backup singer on massive, you know, festival stages, but it still fulfills me in a lot of
Yeah,
ways. It's a
yeah,
different kind of show, it's a different kind of singing. And that's what I've learned about myself. I just need to be singing. The minute I
yeah,
stop
yeah.
singing and performing, then I'm not a happy person because that's part of what I need to do. And I think that's what I
Right.
look at with Shinedown. Like when knowing Barry or any of these guys, they get a joy out of doing that specific job. You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing. I would say that you did feel that about singing when you were at the height of 6 a.m. There was a real
Yeah.
joy in that. But the touring side of it, the grueling part of being away from home, and there's parts of, you know, I think it's
Even the studio work and all of that, making records, it wore me down.
Mhm.
But you know, I spend a lot of my time now, like I said, after I take the boys out in the dogs out in the morning to do their business, I come back in, I have a couple of coffees, and I spend a lot of time reflecting on what a wonderful career I had, you
right.
know, and I'm so grateful for it.
I want to say one other thing too. Who's
Yeah.
to say that you don't get to make the choice to do that again at some point? And that's the other key piece of this is
Mm.
that you don't know. That's the thing about life. It's like if you were to in 2 years, oh, hey, can 6 a.m. come do this thing? Who's to say you wouldn't go, fuck yeah, we can like again. It's
Yeah.
you get to
I mean,
decide.
it
It's
sure
your
would be
life.
fun to get back
Your
together
life.
and do something else, you know.
You get what I'm saying. There
I
is
do.
no,
I
it's not
do.
over forever. Like you get to decide and you're just
No.
making choices and that's
You're
okay.
right. And you know, this was a choice I made. I was the one that made the choice to walk away from all of this stuff.
Right. And you could
Anyway,
make the choice
thanks,
to go
buddy.
back.
I needed to hear that. I've been kind of obsessing on that lately, and you know how I am. When I obsess hard.
Yeah.
So,
And life is confusing. And we're all just sort
life
of
is
trying to figure
confusing.
out, we're all just sort of trying to figure out the right next move for our
Yeah.
lives and to make us happy. And I think sometimes we don't follow our instincts. And I think you're a great example of somebody who does when you know something's not working for you. And sometimes that shit's hard, but you've still made decisions that are serving you better. And like what, you know, what's to compare to that? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just a different path and that's okay.
Yeah.
Call me for all
All
your
right.
therapy needs, everyone out
I
there.
appreciate that. I'm glad I called today. All right, guys. Hey, Robert, good to see you again. And it's good to see both of you. And we'll talk soon.
All right.